So, okay, thank you all for joining us today. As I mentioned, we will be diving into the findings of the European travel trends to the United States. I introduced briefly the company, and I wanted to show you our global presence. As I mentioned, we work with over 60 countries and over 5,000 destinations. To explain briefly our approach, we combine 5 major tourism pillars. So we monitor the accessibility of destination through flight capacity, prices, searches, and bookings. Then our second pillar is looking at the demand, the trends, the visitor profiles, their presence in the destinations, and their mobility. The third pillar is really understanding their interests and perception as it relates to a variety of different topics, not just tourism topics, but also safety, climate. And then we look at the hotel and holiday rental satisfaction. We also look at supply to understand what is the destination composition as far as POI. We look at hotels and short-term rentals distributions. We look at events, and then we also can do competitive benchmarking. And finally, we look at the overall impact in the destination through visitor spending, but we also look at the impact from a sustainability standpoint and also from a resident standpoint. So we can understand perception of residents as well. All of this is a methodology based on big data processing, like I mentioned before. It does not include any surveys. We do complement surveys work, but again, like this is big data processing through the use of AI as well. So for today's webinar, what we will be analyzing data from the European Union 28 countries. So we obviously are looking at them as a whole region, which is fairly big. And as well as we're looking at the United States, which is another fairly big market. So keep in mind that these are high-level trends that we have seen that we think destinations should be paying attention to. But also keep in mind that single markets has obviously specific unique behaviors, and also regional areas of the United States might see different behaviors as well. So the first important trend that we have identified by looking at specifically bookings.com reviews based on stays of European visitors in the United States. We analyzed data starting from 2023 up to 2025. And as you can see, we see an uptick for most of this emerging trending destinations. Some of them are certainly considered iconic. Obviously, we have a connection to the Grand Canyon. We have Miami, which is an iconic destination for European, but we've started really seeing a shift to destinations that are off the beaten path, or maybe in the proximity of the iconic destinations that we will be seeing later that are obviously in the minds of the European travelers, but are more unique, more connected to the real American experience. And one example that stands out here in this list is certainly Cody. Cody has done a great job of international storytelling for the last few years that has certainly paid off in terms of inspiration to visit this beautiful small town. So the trend is here. You can see obviously these are not bookings. We're not talking about bookings, but we're talking about a trend due to the reviews that we were able to identify on this stays in these destinations. Kissimmee is also very interesting to see, and this also will be and will connect with trends that we'll be seeing later on, specifically related to family travel and to also the idea of wanting to connect iconic destinations with a variety of other experiences, such as coastal activity travel, etc. Another one is Austin. It's at the very bottom. You can see it's emerging as well as it relates to being accessible, but also offering city living with outdoors, active lifestyle, etc. And then another one that it's interesting to note here, it's Sedona, with the combination of the outdoors, but also the wellness experience. When we look instead at the gateway and the most iconic, well-known places to visit, we see that there is a decrease in reviews, which means that doesn't necessarily mean that there is a decrease in interest or in visitors, but it's certainly there is a decrease in the potential stays in this destinations. It's either because they have already been visited, so obviously Europeans now are looking to go beyond those gateways and really look for more of the authentic cultural experiences that are tied to the images and the imaginary of the United States as a country, for what Europeans really want to experience when they come to the United States. It also means that they are staying less, right? So staying less nights, and they move beyond those gateways to really go and explore road tripping and outdoors experiences. Miami is an exception here. Miami is staying steady and actually growing in terms of stays reviews. So that is something that you will see here is highlighted in green. But for the most part, this is the trend that we have seen in terms of bookings reviews. When we look at the European flights bookings, so we are only looking at bookings, and we have compared two periods. So the first comparison is for the full years of 2024 compared to the full year of 2025. We have seen a booking decrease. So bookings decrease by 4% during those years. This is something that you might have experienced in your destinations. So this is certainly something that might not sound new to you. We will see a shift in the sense that we saw bookings fairly strong for the first few months of 2025, and then declining, and we will see that through also the hotel stay. But the positive note that I want to highlight here, and I wanted to spend some time here, is when we look at and compare the period January-April 2025 to the same period in 2026, we see an increase of 11% in bookings, which is a positive and encouraging sign that Europeans are still looking at the United States as a place to go on vacation. Obviously, we don't have the full data for 2026, so we won't be able to really say if this final trend will be staying positive or if it will be matching the same same pace of 2025. But for right now, we're taking the positive note that we see an increase in bookings, so an increasing interest in visitation to the United States. However, what we have noticed is that the lead time to booking has shortened. I want to say significantly, and this can be certainly a sign of uncertainty, sensitivity to price, and so something to pay attention to. Europeans are certainly more careful. They are taking their time to book, and that's something that we will see later, but obviously it's something to pay attention to. We don't know that this will be the trend for the entire year, but as of right now, we see there is a little bit of uncertainty when it comes to making the final decision. However, when we look at the gateways, the main gateways, obviously these remain still the main destinations with accessibility to arrive to the United States, and then obviously from there start a journey. We look at data, booking data from 2024 to 2025. We see that there was still an increase for those main gateways. And this is true for all of them, but for New York JFK, which has seen a decrease, most likely due to capacity adjustment and pricing as well. But what we can see here is that the average stay for these gateways is either staying stable or is decreasing. Very, very rarely is actually showing an increase. In the case of Orlando and Washington and Seattle, we see that the motivations are varies. Obviously, Orlando is a big family destination where you see that the lead time to booking is also higher because it takes time to plan a vacation with a family. It also allows for a longer stay typically. But in general, the trend is to stay less in those main gateways and move beyond those. So move beyond the beaten path and really look for authentic experiences, which is a challenge for some, but is also an opportunity at the same time. So when we look at the visitor profiles, we understand that certainly there is a specific composition of travelers that attracts the United States. Couples and families remain the main traveler audiences. There's also a significant element of groups and solo travelers. Solo travelers have seen a trend recently in the recent years of increasing trends for solo travelers. So I think this is something that destination can capitalize on, especially because obviously, like we said, some markets might have more solo travelers than others. Like we mentioned before, we're not looking specifically at individual behavior here, but we are looking at collective behavior. But because solo travelers, we see a slight increase. We want to flag this, that could be a potential opportunity for destinations to really capitalize on this specific persona. When I look at the preferred hotel categories, we see that 3 stars and 4 stars hotels are certainly the main choices. So we are looking at a mid-scale segment. We have a very marginal high-end segment, which certainly some destinations can capitalize on. And then we look at the seasonality. European travelers are highly seasonal. One certain season that it's important is certainly the spring season because of the extended vacation time that gravitates around the Easter holidays, especially markets like UK, Germany can certainly extend those the holidays to really consider a long haul travel, such as the United States. The other period of visitation is summer. As you can see in 2024, summer went into the fall because visitation was still strong, while 2025 lost some traction in the fall, which is obviously a flag, something to think about, that it's has lost some traction there for 2025. But typically, shoulder season could really be the season to attract international travelers. And when we look at the preferred type of accommodations, obviously hotels is the preferred accommodation, but we do see a trend in the short-term rental industry, where we see an increase, or we have been seeing an increase in the last few years, which we think that it's worth to pay attention to for a variety of reasons. Well, first, we don't even have the full picture because this is only booking data. So we think that if we also add Airbnb data, then we have a much more significant increase on the short-term rental side. I think it's important to pay attention to this trend because first of all, it shows the composition type of the travelers. So we're looking at potential family and groups that are looking for flexibility, more space, independence, potential, also longer stay, and therefore higher spending in the local economy. Obviously, immersion in the culture and deeper local engagement. And we also look at visitor dispersal with the short-term rentals, which means that there's an opportunity for states, for example, to really engage with rural and emerging destinations on this, and as well as spread tourism geographically around different areas. So certainly an important trend to keep an eye on, and also the need for destination to really have STR intelligence in place. When we look at the main drivers of visitation, by looking at specific social media engagement, so topics of engagement and conversation that Europeans prefer when they are uninspired to travel, when they are talking about traveling to the United States. Across different years, we see that active lifestyle is certainly the most discussed topic, and therefore the steady demand drivers for Europeans. This is because Europeans, when they travel, they want to be active. They just don't want to see places, but they also want to experience places. And so whether it's through the outdoors, whether it's through any sort of sports activity or outdoor activity, that is exactly what Europeans like to do. So this is important because together with nature and culture, this is extremely valuable selling proposition that the United States has plenty to offer. Within this trifecta, I want to call it, there is an important element here that it's also growing less, but it's food and cuisine. This is important because for European travelers, culture is a big element of satisfaction. It's a driver for visitation. They really want to learn, immerse themselves in the culture. And this immersion doesn't only happen with obviously visiting historic places, visiting museums, but also experiencing the destinations through food. And this is something that I want to highlight because I think food storytelling internationally is not still predominant in a way. It's probably a niche, but sometimes the niche is really what brings the value and the differentiation for destinations. So destination that can capitalize on that food and cuisine, emerging trends, local businesses, really showcasing what the US is. I know it's hard to think about this because when you think about Europe, you think about going to Europe and enjoying good food, good wine. But this is a trend that is there. And for the United States, this is not the 80s anymore. Europeans don't have just the image of the US as fast food and hamburgers, but actually the perceptions of Europeans toward the United States, even around food, has changed significantly. And because of the interest around culture, destination that really can highlight their offering under the food and cuisine would be really interesting to these European travelers that are looking for authenticity. And it's the same when we look at the most engaging experiences on the OTA side. So when we look at the offers on TripAdvisor, Get Your Guide, for example, here are some of the platforms that we utilize to look at the most engaging experiences. We look at the trifecta that is still there. So active, cultural, and nature. With food and cuisine, though, being very slightly, well, just a small portion of it, and with the potential to significantly increase with time. It's something that we see both on the social media side and on the OTA side. And we certainly think that having itineraries, compelling itineraries with including all of these elements will be certainly a win. This is important because European travelers, not all of the markets, obviously there is a distinction because some markets are more mature than other markets. For example, if we think about UK versus a market such as Italy, maybe a little bit young but growing, there are potential to really move the mature markets into experiences that are beyond those iconic experiences versus, maybe working with a newer market that are still like in their first process of visiting the United States. And so the offering might change. So there is a real nuance when we package itineraries, push out content, think about the marketing message that has to really resonate with the different markets that we want to target. It's like I said, in this scenario, we are looking at the trend. The trend for all of them shows that there is a significant interest in these activities. And then there is a significant opportunity to highlight food and cuisine as part of the cultural offering as well. Okay, so when we move to the next slide, and we are considering European overall satisfaction with travel experiences. In this scenario, we are collecting data from social media to build 4 main indexes that produce this global satisfaction score. We look at not just the tourism offering and the hotel and accommodation side, but we also look at security and climate. Why? Because both security and climate are important when making travel decisions. Obviously, visitors want to feel safe, welcome when they travel. They also want to feel safe from a weather perspective. So the good news is that if we look at the data and we compare to year over year, starting from 2023, we look at both security and climate, they have actually good scores. And so that means that, especially for 2025, this is important because as the media portray certain news around the United States, it's important to note that the expectation maybe were to go into some sort of situation that would feel not that safe, or maybe find different scenarios. But indeed, instead, the perception of actual visitors was very surprisingly positive, nonetheless, the media landscape. So this is also important to note that the potential discrepancy to what the media say and to what the visitors' actual experience. So keeping a pulse on this specific perception is important, as well as climate. On the hotel satisfaction and tourism product side, the good news is that looking at the data from 2023 to 2025, year over year, there's an increase in overall satisfaction. However, when we look at the global satisfaction score and we compare it to top 10 destinations worldwide, which obviously the US is part of, because it's a highly desirable country to visit, as well as other European destinations, the score of the United States as far as tourism product and hotel is not as high. And there is certainly something that we can tell about this in detail. Obviously, different destinations and different regions have different potential and different offerings and different quality of offerings. But this is something important to keep an eye on, because it is a matter of meeting those expectations for the visitors and making sure that there is value for their money, that it's there. And there's also a certain level of authenticity and other element that obviously we can go more in detail, not the purpose of this webinar today, but I just wanted to highlight this trend that yes, it is growing. The score is growing in terms of satisfaction, but there is still some room for improvement there. And then when we look at the summary of challenges, the first one that we look at is, I mentioned, the perception, the overall perception as far as tourism products, services, and hotel experiences. So how we work together, city with rural, different type of experiences from iconic to less well-known, to really provide a cohesive experience, whether it's within the state, whether it's within a region, whether it's for the United States as a whole. Obviously, how can we all work together to really provide that level of experience that is meeting the expectation of European travelers? The second challenge is a challenge, but it's an opportunity as well. It's really working with the gateways to capitalize on obviously their name as main gateway of arrival, to give attention to those destinations that are outside of those gateways, while at the same time feeding the gateways and making sure that also gateways see that longer average stay. So how to combine the city with those experiences that are far beyond that. And another challenge is truly the booking window. We saw that is become shorter compared to prior, which is obviously a challenge because it highlights multiple challenges, which is, like I mentioned, a little bit of skepticism, price sensitivity, and a little bit of reluctancy on the booking side. And so how do we address that in the best possible way to make sure that the European travelers still convert and still visit the United States? In terms of opportunities, we see that obviously European travelers are becoming more experienced, more savvy travelers, and are looking for authenticity and really experiences that are beyond those main iconic cities that they might have already visited. So how do we bring them to explore beyond the beaten path, and how do we develop compelling itineraries that still meet those high quality experiences that Europeans expect? And how do we strengthen U.S. positioning in this main driver? So natural and active lifestyle. What is the positioning of the U.S. in this capacity? And the last opportunity, it's really capitalize on this positive note of growing flights bookings to sustain European demand also in the medium and long term for 2026. Here is my contact information. Thank you all for listening. I hope we can open it up to question.
I have a couple of questions, but before breaking the ice with the questions, please, to all attendees sharing this webinar with us, please go ahead and ask us things and share your ideas. Okay, I see. Oh well, yeah, Megan, that's a message from you, right? Perfect. Okay, so I will crack on a couple of questions that I think it will be interesting also for you to understand the way that we build these insights. And Maria, I wanted to ask you, what was the insight that surprised you the most, that you didn't expect at all, and the insight that you feel that, I mean, that you were expecting, that it's kind of an insight that you expected in some sort of way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's start from what I expected. Uh, expected to see a decrease in bookings in 2025. This was certainly something that was confirmed, and so I was just like really not surprised by that. However, I was certainly surprised by the significant increase in safety perception in 2025. Really, I thought that was a significant, good insights, which shows that there is a level of um, differentiation within the United States, that travelers are really looking to the United States as regions, as different parts of the United States. It's like the United States is a huge country for them, and so they are really associating, coast, New England, or Eastern, Western, Alaska, Hawaii. All of those are a multitude of different experiences within one country, and so keeping that differentiation when thinking about the strategy for them, and maybe not assuming that they would necessarily follow what media say, but really truly have their own expectation and truly their own positive experiences within the United States. That's certainly a great insight.
Yeah, actually, one of the things that we would love to share also is that when we were doing this, we were preparing this deck for you. By the way, Trisha, I saw your question. We will answer shortly. Okay. When we're developing this deck, we also said, okay, the evolution of the index of safety perception, which is in the end the how, to what extent the expectation of the traveler is met or not in the destination. We thought, okay, 2025 looks great compared to 2020 to 2023, but let's see what is going to happen when we start taking a look year to date data. Okay, and we are seeing that the safety perception is decreasing slightly. Okay, but it's decreasing at the very beginning of the year, and this decrease is not uniform because, for example, in markets such as Spain or Italy, the perception of safety is quite solid and very stable. But there are two very, very important markets for European markets for the United States that are showing a certain decline in perception of safety, which is Germany and the UK. Okay, and these two markets, Germany, in fact, has been quite sensitive in terms of, all the I would say media exposure and U.S. positioning in the last 2 years, and we are seeing a slight but still a declining trend in a perception of safety. Okay, what is important to keep in mind when we are discussing perception of safety is, okay, how we can make that these European travelers that are doubting or creating a certain word of mouth about their experience in the US that is questioning perception, how we can tackle that as destinations and as part of the value chain of travel and tourism in the US. Okay. Trisha, answering your question, how are most European actually booking now independently or through operators? If independently, what are the top sources of those bookings? By the way, Maria has an amazing insight that we actually exchanged that question last week because we supposed that this question might come up, and we will share the insight from Focusrite, which we collaborate with worldwide. And Maria, do you have that data there? If not, I can try to find it in a
I don't
minute.
have it with me at the moment, but
Okay.
I'm happy to share to follow up if it's helpful afterward.
Correct. Trisha, we will share with you, okay? But in general, um, I would say that it will depend on the profile of the traveler, okay? And yes, of course, Trisha, we will share, okay? But in general, it depends on the traveler profile, okay? So if it's I would say a high spender that it will stay longer in destination, um, they will resort to tour operators. Different type of tour operators, okay, and this is also very correlated with what Maria said regarding active lifestyle and nature trend. um, this is a very, very specific and particular travel motivation and demand driver, and also a very specific experience that you are pursuing when you're traveling to the US. So when the trip is longer, when you are looking for a certain experience, then you resort to tour operators. But there is also a fair amount of European travelers, especially the ones traveling solo and with families that and on a budget, particularly as prices and the cost of traveling from Europe to the US is now higher than it was 2 or 3 years ago. They are looking for deals, like solid deals. So they travel independently looking for those deals. Okay. So it will depend on, I would say, the profile of the traveler and the motivation of your trip to the US. But we will share that focus right inside, Trisha. Okay. More questions. People is being shy, but I will make another question to Maria. Maria, you are because you are living there and you are based in the US, and you are European. And I'm see. Wait, I will resort to this question from Trisha. Trisha said, you touch on road trips. How common is that? And what are the top areas for road trips? I don't know, Maria, if you want to answer. I have an answer for this one.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, this is very related to the work that Brand USA has been doing in Europe for the last 5 years. Road trips has been, I would say, a very, very strong driver and, I would say, positioning product, the product that Brand USA is trying to position in Europe, because Europeans love road trips. Okay. And of course, Route 66 is a very, very important one. I don't remember right now the name of this road, which is very relevant from the north to the south. That is the route, the music route that is the route that Louis Armstrong did from Chicago to Louisiana, and is very related with jazz. Okay, that's also very popular in Europe, and also the road trips in the coast. Okay, both east and west coast are very, very popular, and also road trips that allow you to to enjoy the scenery of great outdoors. So Wyoming, Montana, Colorado, to all this route that goes to Nevada, Colorado, and then the north of Portland, sorry, of Oregon, and then California. That's also very popular, and it's very related, as we were saying at the very beginning, with active lifestyle and nature. So this is a very interesting, I would say, outcome of the promotional efforts of Brand USA, tapping into this, love of Europeans for road trips. And particularly, this is very successful within couples, young couples, and I would say young adult couples and honeymooners. Very, very popular. I don't know, Trisha, if I answer your question. Okay, great. So actually, I answered myself the question I was going to do to Maria. So I don't know if you have any more questions or any other things that you want to share, or you want to maybe dive deep into the data on some of the insights that we share today in this webinar. You can always send the questions afterwards, and we will happily answer them. We will share also the slides with you after next week, so you can have those for whatever you might find useful. And please don't hesitate to reach us with whatever question or idea that comes up to your mind after this webinar. Maria, I don't know if you want to say anything else.
Yeah, no, I am available if you want to reach out to me directly. Happy to maybe dive into the data. We also have more data that obviously we collected to put together this presentation. So we might dive deep into it if there are specific questions on the flight booking side, or specific questions on the reputation satisfaction index as well. Obviously, we mentioned that this is EU 28, so we can also maybe dive deep into specific target markets, because maybe some of you might have curiosity around that. And so happy to stay in touch, and be available to answer any questions you might have.
Maria, there is another question from Joseph. I'm sorry, Joseph, I don't understand exactly the acronym that you're using. The IIO. Can you explain it for me, or maybe Megan or Maria? You know what the acronym is? Sorry, I'm not
Question to your mind.
native English speaker.
Oh,
So because
yeah.
there you
You
go,
just spelled it out.
Syrian. Okay, now I have it. Okay, so the question is, how do you split out visitors from general travelers from Syrium data? That's the question,
So
Joseph.
yeah, so for the flight data, for the flight booking data, what we have showed today is GDS booking. So we actually have aggregated the GDS that we use for the bookings. we have not included an additional data set that we can provide as well through IATA data, which is the consortium of airlines that provide data on their direct bookings. In terms of the question for Cerium, we use Cerium for capacity and to monitor any shift in capacity. So we do use different data sets for the bookings, so we can work with destinations on which type of data sets they are looking at. Some of them might just be interested in monitoring capacity to really have a pulse on what airlines are doing and maybe potentially negotiate new routes. Or we look at searches just to understand intention. We look at bookings through GDS and IATA data as well if destinations have a specific interest in that. I hope it helps.
By the way, Joseph, we can with the data that we share today, let's say that we share the kind of a overview of the flight booking trends, but we can split that information and narrow down that information to, for example, identify certain travelers profiles depending on if they are families or groups, or if they are traveling for business purposes or for leisure purposes. We can do that. That's something that requires a kind of a more in-depth analysis, but definitely we can do that.